Your life.
We're live. Welcome to ACAB Radio, changing the hearts and minds one listener at a time. Presented by Nevada Coplock and Food Not Bombs Las Vegas. Be sure to check us out at our websites at nvcoplock.org and foodnotbombslasvegas.org. We are podcasting live from Happy Earth Market. Go to happyearthmarket.com and see their community building activities and events. We're your hosts. We have Special K, Jay Leifer, and I'm King Ron.
That's our rap names.
It is. We do rap all the time.
All right, so Kelly, what inspired you to get involved in activism?
Well, I first started, actually, I was involved a little bit, like, way younger through, like, art and stuff, but when I first started getting involved in activism, it was through Food Not Bombs, and just the community spirit of going out and helping people that needed help, and really reintegrating people that are homeless back into society, because a lot of times people they're dumped on and they're treated like they're not actually people, and so it's not only good for the people, it's good for the society, because you take these people and you make them kind of a hostile part of this society, and it works against society in general, and then obviously it hurts the people that are in that unfortunate situation. So I started getting involved in police issues as part of that, because the police harass homeless people constantly.
Mm-hmm.
It's to a certain extent, it's a policy of governments and of the police. They don't want people to see homeless people, and they will go out and harass homeless people and try to give them tickets for, like, jaywalking or whatever they can,
Mm-hmm.
to try to build some sort of record against them. And the prevailing theory on that is that if somebody has a record and they commit some sort of serious crime, then they can be put away for, in prison. The problem with that is that the vast majority of people never do that. So
Mhm.
it's maybe 5% of the homeless population.
They just want to, establish a record,
Right.
kind of build a case, and rap sheet on them.
Right, so they can pick them
Right.
up, and then
So,
next time
well,
they see them.
It's partly control, because if they have records and they have a warrant which goes with those citations, because they can't pay the citation, so it becomes a warrant,
Mm-hmm.
then they can hold that over them and they can control them. Like, if they don't do what they say, then they arrest them.
Yeah.
Right, and they're essentially being arrested for being impoverished or poor.
Mm-hmm.
This is what it boils down to.
It's criminalizing homelessness and poverty in general. A lot of it's bullying, but it's an extension of that. So that you have people that are bullies, and that's an easy target, and it's somebody that can't fight back, they can't hire a lawyer, they can't afford to be in jail for long periods of time. And so what really happens is the vast majority of people never commit that serious crime, but now they have a record, and it's harder for them to get a job, so they stay homeless longer.
Just perpetuates a cycle.
And
Yep.
it's also, it creates that hostility, and it actually creates crime when you really look down into it, because what happens is people, they don't feel a part of the society, and they don't feel, they feel hostility toward people.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually do go out and commit crimes, because they just don't care.
Yeah, that's what attracted me to Food Not Bombs, was just the community that it builds, and help these people to feel like they're cast aside, and we try to bring them back into the community and let them know that there are people out there that do care and want to help.
Right, we humanize them.
Yeah.
One of the issues is that for the general population, they'll see someone who they perceive as homeless and may be homeless, and they tend to cast their eyes away, and they dehumanize that person. So we definitely do bring back that human element.
Mm-hmm.
It's good for the community in that respect. These are our fellow human beings and deserve all the respect that everyone gets, not just those of greater economic means. So I'm with you on that 100%.
Absolutely. What about you, Ron? What got you inspired to activism?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I've always kind of been into it. I used to run a government food program back in Brooklyn, New York, and I don't even think the term activism or activist was even around at that point. You know, it was doing what we're supposed to be doing. I was raised that, you know, you help your neighbors and you help your community. And then, of course, life, you know, gets in the way, and I did different things and moved around a lot. And, you know, helped with different organizations wherever I wound up. And I wound up moving to Las Vegas and was fortunate enough to find Food Not Bombs. And, you know, doing some research on it, and what a tremendous organization and what a beautiful idea. I was, you know, hooked right in. And I've been sticking with it now for quite a while. I met some really great people that keep me energized and motivated. And I see the good that we do. I mean, it's not theory. I'm out there on the street, and I actually see the good that's created. So when we're doing our community picnics, we really are building community, and we're building community for all. You know, it's not that Food Not Bombs just helps people who are homeless. We help anybody who wants to come over and share a meal. I mean, whether, you know, you're just out walking in the park, or guys who are working around their lunch hour, want to come by, we sit and talk. And as people get to know one another, there's this myth out there that somehow the homeless population seems to be more dangerous than the outstanding population. And once you start bringing together people who have homes with people who are homeless, and they talk, and they start finding out that they have things in common, then, you know, we start tearing down those walls and building bridges. And they realize, you know, these people aren't these monsters that are created, you know, by the myths that are put out there by some of the government agencies and the social service organizations. But they're actually people just like every other person. There's good and bad, and they have their ups and downs, and, you know, they like sports, and some of them are artists and musicians, and, you know, they're just like everyone else. We're all the same when you get down to it. And that's one of the greatest things.
Absolutely. Yeah, I noticed that too, just from being out there at Circle Park. Every time a government organization would come in, you know, to help, but they would bring police and marshals with them. And that's, you know, people driving by see that, and it just perpetuates that myth that the homeless are dangerous. You know, we go out there and we get nothing but love from these people, so I don't understand it. I mean, I get why they do it. It's just to perpetuate that myth, for sure. But
well, it keeps them in a job. I mean,
yeah,
you know, if you're getting 6 figures and you're there to help the homeless, if you actually, you know, created programs that there was no more homeless people to serve, then you just put yourself out of a job. And I don't really believe they want to do that. So it's kind of important for them to keep their job.
Well, the other thing is that people realize when they go out with groups like Food Not Bombs that there's not that much of a gap between, especially in today's society and today's economy, there's not that much of a gap between you and the guy in the park. And not all the people that we do are homeless. Some people are just don't have a lot of money. Some people, they might have a choice between eating and paying their power bill.
Yeah.
And if we can provide them the food, then they don't have to make that choice, and it makes it better for them. And is something where they might not end up homeless because they have the money to pay their rent because they didn't have to spend a bunch of money on food. And the other thing is that it's not just a passive thing. The government has declared Food Not Bombs a terrorist group officially. In Pennsylvania, they had the FBI infiltrating the Quakers, who were part of not Food Not Bombs, but they were part of a group that was giving out food to people that needed it. And the government actively will undermine and try to destroy anything that provides an alternative to the government. If you are convincing people that the government isn't necessary, they will come and try to eliminate you.
Yeah, they don't want to see anarchy successful, so anytime they see that, they definitely step in and try to, whether it's arresting people or issuing citations, there's definitely a war on poverty going on. We've seen it more and more recently in California and other states passing legislation, banning sharing food. Like, I don't understand how you can make a law making it illegal to share food.
Right, and that actually happened here in 2006, and there were people that were arrested and people that had citations. And, Gail Sacco was one of them, and other members of her family, including Joe Sacco, her son. And I know Gail, when I first became involved in Food Not Bombs, which was 2009, she still had the citation. She was still going through the courts with it from 2006. And I think it was until 2011 before it was resolved. So.
And she won that fight, right?
Yeah, well, it was a settlement where they made some concessions about, like, part of the thing is once they made it illegal, that got overturned pretty quickly because part of the wording of it was that if you appeared that you would qualify for government services, then you could not offer somebody food. So it was based on appearance, and that was pretty clearly not constitutional, so it was overturned pretty quickly. So they did other stuff, and one of the things they did was requiring permits. So they would have, I think it was 30 people that you needed a permit after 30 people. So they would count everybody in the park, even if they weren't with you. So that was their way of enforcing permits. And permits are one of those things that the government uses to exclude people. It's not used to, the basis of that word is permission. So you're asking the government for permission to do something that you should be allowed to do anyway.
Yeah.
And the fact that the government can turn down those permits and not even give you a reason is how they exclude people that they don't want doing something.
Mm-hmm.
So I know one of the concessions was that it had to be 75 people before they required a permit.
Right, they upped the number of people.
Yeah. So there were I don't know the exact details of it, but there were some concessions by the government, and it was basically just it came to the point where they wanted to get rid of it.
So this was before I started getting involved in Food Not Bombs, but since I've been there, I've noticed they've kind of resorted to dirtier tactics like overwatering the park on days that they're not even supposed to be watering, just to kind of drive them out. And I remember the first day of winter that it was actually really cold out here was the first day that we showed up for Food Not Bombs, and we noticed that they were doing that. And I was just shocked seeing everybody with all their belongings soaking wet. It was just despicable.
Yeah, they've done it to other parks also. I mean, our park is unique. Also, is that they also restricted the hours. So they make sure that the police officer there just prior to those hours. I believe it's 8 a.m. So they're there at 7:45, and if you just happen to be stepping into the park at that time, they run up and harass you. The same thing at 5 o'clock when it closes, which is the only park in Vegas that has those hours. I've never seen another one. They'll come through and sweep.
And the other thing about that is their final thing when they were trying to figure out a way to enforce this law against feeding homeless people at Circle Park was they actually just closed the park. And the park was closed for, I think, 5 years.
Oh, wow.
So it was just sitting there in the middle of the road empty.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
And then when they finally opened it, it took about 6 months before we could get them to open the bathrooms. And then they would complain that people were going to the bathroom in public, even though they had locked the bathrooms. Because
So they created the problem.
Right.
because
That's what they complain about.
if you lock the bathroom, people don't have to go to the bathroom anymore. So.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to get involved in Food Not Bombs, we have a Facebook group, Facebook page, website, foodnotbombslasvegas.org. Whether it's to donate, there's a GoFundMe set up. If you have more money than time, if you have more time than money, then we can always use an extra pair of hands out at Circle Park. It's Sunday, Monday, and Wednesdays. Yeah, we could use all the help we can get. We'd appreciate it.
Yeah. Hey, do you want to talk about next segment, about what's going to be going on?
Yeah, so this show is going to be about the 1 October shooting and how the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department has handled the investigation to date, and the subsequent protests that followed because of the lack of transparency and just survivors and average citizens and even the media wanting answers, wanting the truth, and Metro refusing to release it. So we actually have a speaker that's going to call in who is a survivor from Route 91. His name's Shannon. I actually met him at one of our protests. It was at the Metro headquarters. There's a few survivors there, but I remember talking to Shannon, and we've stayed in touch over the time. So we're going to bring him on, see if we can get a hold of him.
Yeah. It should be very interesting to hear from somebody who was there at the time and get his take. The Broward County, I believe, with their tragedy, there was police officers that didn't act, and there's also cases here where we found out that there were police officers outside not responding while people were being murdered.
Yeah, they waited in the stairwell and were given a stand-down order until SWAT showed up, and it was over an hour
And
until
it was
they
an
finally
active-
breached the room. Yeah, there was an active shooting going on. It's unbelievable.
75 minutes they sat in the hallway.
So,
Hey, Shannon, it's Joey. How you doing? Can you hear me okay?
I hear you now. Yeah.
All right, we can hear you good too. How you doing, man?
Pretty good.
You still out on vacation out in Cali?
Actually, not right now. We decided not to go. We had some stuff to do here.
Okay. I wanted to ask you, did you make it out to that 6-month vigil that they had at the site?
Oh, yes, I did.
Yeah, how was that?
It was pretty good. I'd say there was about 400 people.
Oh wow. Did you see Ramsey there? Ramsey Dennison?
Yeah, I saw Ramsey and Mike Turner. Hung out with them a little bit.
Nice. Yeah, so I was saying how we met. I met you at the Metro protest outside of Metro headquarters, and we've been in contact ever since. And I know there was a couple other survivors there that also did interviews with Ramsey, and I just wanted to bring you on to get your thoughts and your feelings on how Metro's been handling this whole investigation. I mean, I know you're not, anti-cop by any means. There were certainly some heroes that night. I know I've seen body camera footage of cops going towards the gunfire and cops that had, probably saved lives that night. So my beef, the reason why I organized these protests was not against cops, that their actions that night. It's how the higher ups handled the investigation after the fact. And I know there's a lot of survivors that also are frustrated with what's going on. So, like in particular, the most recent development I can think of is Metro being ordered by the courts to release, video footage, body cameras, 911 calls, that sort of thing. And they want to charge almost $500,000 for the media to get answers. And so I just wanted to see, how does that make you feel? Do you think that's right?
Well, I think all the evidence, I think they should be free.
Absolutely.
Of course, they should just open up and give it to, everything they can. Now, I know some of that evidence probably can't be shared until all that lawyer stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we all want answers.
I think there's good cops and bad cops. I'm for the cop, for the police, you know, they protect us. But some people just don't want to follow the rules.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you there. Joe Lombardo being one of them. He, first of all, the lies and the cover-ups that have been coming out with this investigation. The fact that they covered up that an officer discharged the firearm in the room, for, what was it, a month they covered that up. Lying about check-in dates and, so once they do these sorts of things, it makes it hard. It's their credibility is completely trashed, so it's hard to just take their word for it. So that's why I think it's important that we see these documents, we see the footage, so that people can determine what happened. I know you saw that the New York Times released the footage of Paddock in the Mandalay Bay finally. I mean, after, what was it, like 5 months? Yeah, it's creepy, huh? Creepy seeing him bring all that stuff up.
Well, that's part of the thing is that, first of all, they declared that he was the only one and that there was no other suspects, like a half an hour after it happened, before there was any chance they could have investigated and found that out.
Yeah, they didn't even bother to look in to see if it was
So they put
ISIS.
themselves in that box that they had to, adhere to that from the beginning.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, when you look at other shootings, like, the ones in Florida and that stuff, those videos, of the people that did the shooting going around and, entering the places and stuff, those things came out within days or weeks. It's never been months and years before, a shooting. You might not have all of the information because they're still doing some investigations, but, routine video of, him walking around the casino and stuff like that. Normally, if this would have been one of those other shootings, the one in Connecticut at the school, and they had the one in Sacramento and stuff, you see those videos on the news that night.
Yeah.
These routine videos of them walking around and stuff.
Yeah, even the other terrorist attacks that happened, I know there was one in New York where the guy had a backpack and a bomb that malfunctioned and went off, but it didn't hurt anybody, thank God. But that video was released the same day, and then there was a guy, I think it was in New York, they showed footage of him, within a few days. So I think it's good that they released some video, but I think that's just a start. The Mandalay Bay didn't have hallway cameras, so I think it's important that they release all the video footage from the elevators, uninterrupted, unedited, during Paddock's whole stay, so that we can see who was on that floor that shouldn't have been there, because there were leaked room service receipts showing that there were clearly he placed an order for 2 people. There was a charger found in his room that didn't match any of his 7 cell phones. He had 7 cell phones. That's perfectly normal, Yeah.
Yeah. Shannon, I just had a quick question. I mean, as we progress, with the case and everything, I'd really like to know, what would you like to see happen? And what would you like to see released? If you could go a little bit into that, and maybe if you'd care to share some of the behavior you saw during the incident that might, shed some light on all the things we've been talking about. We really appreciate to know a little bit more.
Well, what I'd like to see happen is them to come out with the full truth, of course. And I'd like to see the videos from what happened, all the videos
Mm-hmm.
from Mandalay Bay. I don't know if
did you witness the, you know, like there must have been security at the event. Was security, you know, helping, like organize or direct or?
Forgot about that. When we first came out of the tent, I saw a policeman with a big gun, you know, big gun, not like pistol. I was like, whoa, what's he doing with that? But I figured, they got it. They had to bring it out.
Right.
It sort of scared me, like, were they shooting?
Yeah.
Anyway, I saw that and a few other policemen pick up rifles or whatever they are. And security, I didn't see, you know, the security they hired. I
Right.
didn't see a whole lot of them. I mean, I think my wife said, oh, security people were directing us out towards Las Vegas Boulevard. I was like, well, we're not going that direction. Fire.
Right.
Yeah.
We went the opposite way toward the dirt parking lot and that church parking lot. We came out at gate 4A and we saw this policeman down in the road. He was shot. We found out later he's the policeman that got shot in the neck. He survived. But my wife talked to him earlier that night, trying to get in the gate. They escorted her around to the gate I was at. So
Oh, wow.
I was supposed to meet her at that gate.
Now, oh, well, I had another. Now, I'm sure you were interviewed by the police after all of this. I mean, are the police still in contact with you? Are they updating you on developments or anything? Or are they, you know, what's their behavior been now since the shooting?
Well, let's see. The only time I've really talked to the police about something like is when they came out with the reports of where they found the bodies of the dead people and reported because we found Melissa Ramirez, she's a girl that was 26, dead in the back parking lot.
Sorry.
And that's the girl that was on the video footage that Mike Trevor released. And we were back there that night, and I called the police. Well, I actually got contacted through Facebook, and they called me back, and I talked to the policeman, and he said the reason why they reported her dead at a different location was because the coroner was there at this other location instead of the location they found her.
Okay.
That was his explanation.
Hey, Shannon, you sent me that video from that night. Would you mind if I shared that, or should I just keep that to myself?
No, go ahead.
Yeah?
That's fine.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Just one last question for me. I mean, with such a traumatic experience, I heard that they were offering all sorts of services to the people that were there. You know, did they come and offer you any sort of help in any way, whether through counseling or, you know, being a survivor of a great trauma?
Yeah, we signed up for something. My wife signed us up. They paid for like $5,000 worth of medical and counseling together. So, yeah, we get free counseling for however long that lasts. So that was good. And then the medical bills, I only got a ricochet in my knee. You know.
That's still pretty bad, I think.
Yeah, it's healed up, but it's it was paid for. Well, that I didn't have to pay for that.
That's good.
Yeah.
Do you have an opinion on the charities that have started up? Because they had the one that was the Vegas Strong, where they collected, I think it was 25 million, and then I think they put out like $40,000, and then they turned around and said it was too complicated to decide who should get it or not, and that they were just going to donate it to different corporations. Do you have any kind of opinion about that?
nobody knows where.
Hmm.
Yeah, nobody
Yeah,
knows. They don't even know.
The company and their firm runs is who it's going to go to. But the other thing about that is there was a lot when it had first happened, like within the first week. There was a lot of stuff about like donating food and donating money to cover medical bills, and really, like, my opinion should be like that somebody who was involved in that shouldn't even have a medical bill.
Mhm.
Like, whatever isn't covered by some kind of donations should be covered by either the city or the casinos. And also, people were donating food, and you know, you look at MGM, they have 10 casinos in Vegas, and every one of them has a buffet. So why should people have to be dragging food down there to feed people when these casinos probably throw out enough food to feed the whole city in one day?
That's true. Yeah. Now, do you feel any? Well, I mean, how do you feel about the casino and the hotel itself and their, you know, that it happened on their watch and at their event? I mean, do you have any sort of feeling towards them at all?
I don't really care for Mandalay Bay people there or anybody. You know, I think they're hiding stuff that they shouldn't be because they're trying to protect themselves.
Yes.
Their company, and also, you know, I've hung out with Mike Turner and he investigates and stuff just to help people. And so he showed me around, like, oh, what's this? I went up with him in the service elevator at Mandalay Bay, the hotel part. I haven't really told anybody about that. We have it on video, but we wasn't gonna release it because he did it with someone else. More lucrative.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so that just goes to show that the Mandalay Bay really, they said they instituted some security measures, but really they didn't change anything since it's happened.
Well, they changed the numbers of the hotel.
Or, yeah.
That'll keep everyone safe.
You know that they took the event site and they're turning it into a training center
Yeah, SWAT.
A SWAT
headquarters.
for SWAT.
Well-
Do you think that's an appropriate thing? Do you think maybe they should have used that area for maybe something else? Maybe put in a permanent memorial, or, I mean, something other than something that perpetuates the violence and the thought of what happened there, you know, in a violent way. Maybe something more peaceful.
Yeah, I don't agree with what they're trying to do with that place. I think they should put a memorial there. Because, and I think they're still trying to hide the
Right, so they never contacted you about that area and the use of the area. They never reached out to the victims and asked them what they would like to see. Would help them heal.
Yeah, nobody contacted me about that.
Well, one
Yeah.
of the things about that is there is a concerted effort not to have a memorial on the Strip because they don't want to remind tourists of that. They don't want people to feel threatened by it. The one memorial that they have is in downtown Vegas, which is, I think, 4 miles from where it actually happened. And last week they had an article, I think it was in the RJ, talking about how everybody at the Mandalay Bay has moved on and nobody thinks about it anymore. And that was the general gist of the article, is that they want people just to forget everything. And Lombardo had his famous or infamous quote about a month ago where he said that, you know, it's important that we forget and just move on. And that's part of the reason why the investigation hasn't been properly done, is because they don't want to drag out all that stuff, and they don't want to remind everybody, and they especially don't want tourists thinking about coming to Vegas and that it's a threat. The problem with that, though, is because they're not doing a proper investigation and because they're not getting to the bottom of what actually happened and the flaws in security that allowed it to happen. they're making it less safe, and they're making it more likely that it might happen again because they're not addressing the issues that led to that.
Yeah.
No,
All right. Hey, Shannon, I wanted to thank you for coming on. You guys got any more questions for Shannon?
no, I do appreciate you coming on and being so candid and being able to speak about such a traumatic event. The people listening and the people that will see this gives them a little better insight. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I want to thank you and your wife for everything that you guys have done, for truth and transparency and just trying to, seek answers and not forget and move on like they'd like everyone to do.
Is there anything you'd like to say? I mean, that the people should know before we go?
Well, I know one thing, all the survivors, they're never going to forget. And there's a lot of them. I talk to them almost every day. And, but we're trying to just press forward to a better tomorrow. That's all I know. And hopefully, we can get to the truth one of these days.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you,
Yeah.
Shannon.
Thank you and goodbye.
All right. Have a good one.
Mm.
Yeah, and in regards to that land deal where MGM donated that plot of the shooting site, that's a multi-million-dollar plot of land that they donated to Metro. If you ask me, that's a huge conflict of interest. So not only has MGM donated the maximum amount allowed to Lombardo's first campaign, his re-election campaign, they're also donating, multi-million-dollar plot of land for a new SWAT headquarters. And I think that has to do with, Metro covering for MGM's legal liability and massaging timelines and doing whatever they can to, protect their legal liability, for sure.
Yeah, that's at the very least the image of a payback for not, for protecting their liability, which is basically, in my opinion, 90% of the flaws in the investigation are based on trying to cover up liability, either for MGM or for Metro.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, the whole idea of a SWAT headquarters down on the Strip, the visual of it is just unsettling. I mean, before I lived here, of course, like most people, I came here for vacations. And Vegas has always held like a certain mystique that it was gambling and fun and, and being able to be a little more free than a lot of other places, with the liberal drinking and gambling. And now the thought that there'll probably be tons more of militarized police downtown just doesn't sit well. I don't see it mixing. It just seems like a bad visual.
Well, that's also one of the unintended consequences of that sort of thing. And it ties into the school shootings because when you look at the police that are in schools before Columbine, more or less, more often than not, the kind of police presence was security guards. And after Columbine, there was a concerted effort to create a police force within the schools. The problem is they haven't stopped any shootings. There hasn't been a single time that somebody went to a school to shoot it and one of the cops stopped them. There's the example of Florida where they explicitly did not go in and try to stop them.
Correct.
But the thing is, what they are doing is they're arresting children for doing stuff that children do. So the problem is when you have police, and especially when they're just sitting around, they act like police. So they're already harassing people on the Strip. They're already harassing the performers, locals, homeless people, anybody that they deem
Not a tourist.
Anybody that they deem, that they're not profiting off of, basically, or that is in competition with the casinos in the
Correct.
case of the performers. So what happens is you're going to have these cops down there who they're already in the mindset of harassing people, and now you're going to have even more cops there, and you're going to have really militarized cops. You're going to have a SWAT team, and they're going to act like police, and they're going to go out and they're going to harass people on the Strip, and they're going to just create more issues.
Yeah, it's gonna look like a city under siege.
And the stuff that they're like harassing people on are the things that people talk about that they want to come to Vegas for. The crazy performers, the ability to walk down the street with a beer in your hand, from one casino to the next, and basically just like being able to be free and do stuff that you can't do in other cities is the stuff that the cops are cracking down on now.
Yeah.
And for some reason, Vegas can't figure out that right now there's Native American casinos 20 miles outside of most people's cities. And we're going to reach a point where people aren't going to want to get on a plane and spend $400 to come to Vegas and be bored for a week.
Right, or harassed every time they step out of their casino or hotel room.
Yeah, and a couple things I wanted to say in regard to school shootings. And so out here in Vegas, we have CCSD, and the guy running against Lombardo actually had the idea of doing away with CCSD and just putting Metro in schools. Like, I think that is not the answer, that you're just going to have more police brutality against kids.
Well, it's I think it's intentional. That's the intent of doing that. The school system from its inception was to train children to be workers and obey.
Workers or soldiers, one or the other.
Right.
And that's what it looks like they're trying to do, is they're going to turn it into a prison. I mean, they want metal detectors and...
Well, have you looked at the shape of the school buildings? They have courtyards and inner courtyards.
Very little windows. It's like a prison.
I have a son that went here, and it's insane. They keep pushing more and more. They were more concerned about dress codes than the curriculum. I mean, it's not that, it's like Vegas is top on the list of good schools. In fact, we're at the bottom, way at the bottom. So what they were doing is not working. It is not working. We're not producing better students. We're not producing smarter students. We're just creating havoc and extra stress on the children. So,
and that's because the goal isn't to teach children. It's not education for the goal. It's
indoctrination.
The main goal of the school system is to shape society and the vision of the government that runs those schools.
And that they do a good job with. The police officers in schools frighten me to death. I'm with Nevada Cop Block, and of course, in that we watch a lot of videos of police brutality, and there was a large number that were coming out of the school district having to do with students, and we're talking about our children. These aren't hardened criminals. These aren't. They're children, and they're treating them like adults.
Oh yeah, knocking their teeth out, body slamming them, tasing them. Yeah,
tasing them, intimidation.
Yeah.
And that was not something I wanted for my child. I mean, this is not what I consider to be a good path to be going down. So, the school district meetings and parents could get out there and express, we don't want armed people in our school either way. There should be no armed guards. There's only one reason to have the armed people when you have that many children. You know what's going to happen. They're going to use those weapons if they have them available, and they're going to use them on the children if they feel threatened, which the police department always seems to feel threatened either from cell phones or wallets or shadows.
And then they're saying armed teachers. That's not a good idea either. If you talk to most teachers are pretty level-headed, but you've got some hothead teachers,
Well, it's
Sit
reactionary.
down, Timmy. Yeah.
The whole thing is reactionary.
I personally think if a teacher has a weapon, they have like a concealed carry permit or whatever, they should be allowed to have it. But we shouldn't be turning teachers into police force.
There shouldn't be a program to do that, but I absolutely agree that if teachers are licensed to conceal carry, they should have the right to do so. I don't believe in gun-free zones because that's what they become a target. That's just my personal opinion. That's where these shootings happen. If they have a choice to go to a school that's, there may be some teachers that are concealed carrying, or if you have a choice to go to a school where they're all sitting ducks, which one is the next school shooter going to go to? So it's a complicated, it's a difficult dilemma for sure.
Well, I'm not so sure. I mean, if they would focus more on things like conflict resolution in the schools. I mean, that they have no problem teaching things like the Pledge of Allegiance and, having the, if they would work with the students from an early age. I mean, the anti-bullying campaigns, came into effect after, but they're not really effective. They really have to get in there, and they have to start. Like I said, the conflict resolution would be a great place for them to start, teaching the children how to resolve their issues, how to identify at-risk students.
Yeah, mental health.
Mental health is absolutely paramount. And it's not that the teachers don't know. They're kids. They sit there with them, I mean, we had the same teachers, all through, elementary school and then middle school. The teacher turnover wasn't that great. So the teachers are there. They see the children. They should be able to identify at-risk students. It's not like they don't hear what the other students say or their behavior towards certain students.
Yeah,
So-
there's a couple things about that, and one of the things is the nature of the school system doesn't lend itself to conflict resolution. It actually creates conflicts, and that's why you have so much bullying, because the only way children know how to interact with each other is through this hierarchical system
And authoritarian.
in which they have
Absolutely.
to assert themselves and compete with other people.
Correct.
And because they haven't grown into their personality yet, and they don't know like who they are, that's the easiest way to do that, is by physically abusing other people.
I was
And
thinking maybe.
the other thing is that teachers themselves, like criticizing the school system isn't a criticism of teachers necessarily, because teachers are a victim of the school system as much as the children are. Their job
That's
is
right.
more difficult because of the nature of the school system. And teachers that are the good teachers who go in and try to teach people and try to make a difference are often either not able to do that, or they're prevented from doing that. And they're oftentimes these teachers that are just able to be obedient to the system are the ones that advance, and the others are filtered out, just like a lot of the other sort of government functions.
That's for sure. And so, how are we doing on time?
Yeah, 50 minutes, 50.
Oh,
Yeah, and the Facebook recording came in broken. Like, it's really bad.
Okay.
You're probably not gonna want to use it.
All
that's
right.
okay. Well,
That's why I was
hey,
stressed.
we're welcome on our first show, so
There's a learning
anybody who's
curve.
out there listening,
Yeah,
Facebook keeping us down again.
I believe that's true.
I think Mark Zuckerberg personally is responsible for that.
well, you saw that the stock plummeted, and it's
yeah, 50 minutes ago it plummeted.
exactly. So,
So you want to get into some of the events coming up? Or?
well, we could do events. Yeah. Well, let me do the events, and then
All
we'll have a few minutes at the end, and we can discuss some other stuff, and talk about maybe what's going to be coming up in the later shows, which would be pretty good. So, on Thursday, April 12th, there'll be a free screening of the award-winning documentary on Las Vegas police corruption, What Happened in Vegas, at the Center for Science and Wonder, located at 1651 East Sunset Road.
And there will be a question and answer session after that, featuring Ramsey and other local people that were in the movie.
Yep.
They're going to have free pizza, refreshments.
Oh, okay.
Right. Don't
Yep.
forget that.
Nope. It was all right here, man. So, and yeah, the free pizza for sure, and soda. You guys would love that. We suggest that you RSVP on Facebook at What Happened in Vegas, free film screening, Seesaw, and that's CSAW. Or you could call them if you need more information at 725-696-Seesaw. That's 725-696-2729. And visit them at the Center for Science and Wonder.org.
Also, if I can plug Ramsey's website, it's
Sure do.
whathappenedinvegasthemovie.com. You can also get it on Amazon, iTunes. If you haven't seen it yet, definitely check it out. It exposes, racial profiling, police brutality, lies, cover-ups within, and just outright murder within the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department.
Yep. So it's a free film screening. You guys will enjoy it. I've seen it many times. It's there's one documentary you should see this year. This would be the one for sure. Next on, we have April 21st through 22nd. It's 8 a.m. Saturday through 6 p.m. Sunday. I'm sure there's a break in between. We have the street medic training. And this is what the average person can do. You get some basic medical training in any sort of crisis situation. It gives you basic CPR, first aid. If you're at the park with your children and somebody falls down, how to check for a broken bone, how to bandage your knee. And then it gets pretty extensive. If you're at a demonstration or at a march, it teaches about the signs of heat stroke and how to do that, as well as getting into if there was conflict and somebody was injured. So they do bone setting and what to do until you can get the EMS there on site and how to protect the folks. It's a really good thing, and that's street medic training. What you would do is you'd call Ming at 510-331-2202, and that number again is 510-331-2202. And they'll give you all the information you need to sign up. I know that the seating is limited. This is not the first training we've had, and it fills up fast. So you really got to get out there and do that. And then, of course, we have on May 1st, we have our 12th annual May Day in Las Vegas March and Rally. So that's going to be happening right here where we're broadcasting from. It's at the Historic Commercial Center and Sahara Avenue. And that will be from 5:30 to 6:30. And at the end of the march, we'll be rallying from 6:30 to 7:30. Come and join us for worker rights, immigrant rights, and human rights. So that's kind of an important thing. And you could also find all the events on our Facebook page at facebook.com/ACAB Radio.
And remember, all cats are beautiful.
That's right. ACAB Radio. All chihuahuas are beautiful.
All cats are bastards.
That's true. True. If anybody's from New England, that has special meaning.
Also, next week, we got something special planned. If you guys want to tune in, I definitely encourage that. We got something to do with Metro that we're going to be,
should be
sharing
fun
with you guys. Yeah, so definitely check it out.
That'll be a great thing. And don't forget, join us every Sunday at 10:30, Monday at 11:30, and Wednesday at 11:30 at Hunt Ridge Circle Park for our Food Not Bombs community picnics, where building community is our one priority. So we want to thank everybody for listening. Please share, invite your friends to listen to the podcast. The only way we could get this information out there is if people hear it, and we can invite everybody, since we don't know everybody, but you guys share on Facebook, share with your friends, let them know to listen in. As things roll, we'll be doing more and more. We'll be able, or you will be able to call in or text in questions or comments. The Facebook page is always open, and we really want to hear some feedback on what you'd like to hear and what you'd like to see in upcoming shows.
Also, we're going to be we're going to set up a website where we're going to have video, and if there's related news articles or content videos and whatnot, we'll also share that on there as well.
And don't forget Nevada Cop Block, nvecopblock.org.
There we go. Thank you all.